of umuntu wakaso. So maybe before we even get into the main business of today, I would like you to just maybe give a brief description of who an economist is, just to somebody who knows it from a layman's perspective.
Okay, yeah. So I love that you brought that up because it comes a lot.
Yeah,
like in
sure.
Various, yeah, for us. Yeah. So basically, I think an economist is just someone who's trying to maximize the use of resources.
Okay.
So you have numberless wants, like a lot of wants with limited resources.
Okay.
So you want to make the best use of the resources that you have. Yeah, so that basically implies that the equilibrium to say at each and every time that you are using your resources, are you making the best use of the resources that you have? Okay. Are you utilizing them for the best, I mean, for the best option? Because there's a concept of, in economics, there's a concept of opportunity cost.
Okay.
Like the time that I'm here, there's actually something else that I should have been doing.
Sure.
So it's a concept of, are you making the best use of the resource that you have? Are you making the best use of the time that you have? So basically, I think that's around the principles of economics.
All right, interesting. So perhaps somebody who just thinks an economist is umuntu worker, so you have gotten something from Mr. Musoe.
Yes.
Well, that's how you pronounce your name, right?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So today, like I said, we are discussing agriculture as a business. So please be sure to give us your contribution in the comment section and tell us what you think about today's topic. Ask the questions that you've been having about agriculture as a business, and we'll be able to read those questions. And these two people right here will be able to answer those questions and, of course, help you understand what you need to understand. So as we are discussing agriculture as a business, most people understand or rather have a know-how of what agriculture is, but perhaps most wouldn't know what agriculture is.
Okay, thank you so much. So agree into the difference.
Yes.
Most people have grown up doing farming as a way of life.
Yes.
So that is where agriculture comes in. It's me having a garden in my backyard. It's me rearing chickens, maybe having a poultry at our place, maybe just for, I wouldn't say fun.
Yes.
Bring out more to that, like there's the production side, there's the marketing side, there's everything in between, like what happens from the farm to the fork. Yeah, like from the time that there's actual production, like she mentioned, farming, managing your crops, rearing your livestock, what happens thereafter, like till the point where ultimately I can get my fork and put the food in the mouth. There is a lot that is, there's basically there is a lot that is engaged in the value chains. So agribusiness brings that to light to say you would not just engage in agri, but you engage as a form of investment. You invest your time, we come back to the resources again. Your time, your resources are scarce. So meaning each and every time you are putting your money, each and every time, each and every resource you're putting in, you want to get a yield at the end of the day, like some sort of profit. It's an investment you're making. So it's no longer a tradition, but it's something that you are doing as a form of investment. So, yeah.
It moves from just somebody preparing a garden at home, then from the garden, all they are thinking about is eating what the products of the garden. But when agriculture business, or rather agribusiness, comes in, there is the issue of now from the garden to the market, the money coming in and all that. So would you perhaps say agriculture can be made into something, a business that is very sustainable, like some
soybean, sunflower, maize,
to
produce cooking oil and other soya products.
Okay.
Yeah, so agribusiness, is it a sustainable business? As we speak, we have more smallholder farmers in Zambia compared to the commercial farmers. So that should tell you that agriculture has potential, and it always has had potential on changing the economy of the nation and driving economic change. So agribusiness is very sustainable because for me, speaking for myself, I would say before we can even talk about sustainability of the business, is finance my lifestyle as a business owner at the end of the day. Then is the business also going to cover those costs in the future? So agribusiness, like we can tell from other businesses, for example, those that are into milling, those that are into just one particular value chain.
Okay.
Agribusiness is very sustainable because it cuts across different sectors.
Yeah, because that perhaps that's where I even wanted to come in. One would say, okay, so if I venture into agriculture and say start producing maize cobs, and this is going to take me, let's say, a month from the time I put the seeds in the soil, then the crops come out, then from the time I put the seeds in the soil, then the crops come out, then then that is when I sell. So this looks like it's a long process. How do I survive as I'm doing all this?
Okay, for sustainability of the business, for you to survive, you need to have supplementary income.
Okay.
What are you doing? Agribusiness for us as Zambians, most of the people are depending on rain-fed production.
Yes.
So it means that we are growing our commodities once in a year. And if we're growing once in a year, it means that we're having revenues once in a year again. So what do I do in that period where I'm waiting? That should be between maybe May to next year again.
Next year, yes.
Yeah. So what do? I start up maybe gardening.
Okay.
I invest in a grocery. I invest in other businesses that are able to generate revenues for me on a weekly basis or monthly basis, because to pay for to a point when my revenues come in from agribusiness, they're going to be swallowed up by the costs.
And someone would say, this is not the way to go, because at the end of the day, after I've gotten all these credits, when FRA comes to pay me, yes,
but I say that on focusing on the smallholder farmer.
Yes.
Though the case could be different for other players, like we mentioned before. There's
big
different actors.
guys,
Even Mr.
yes.
Msowe said there's different actors in the value chains. There's different value chains and different sectors before. There's different actors.
Guys,
even Mr.
yes.
Msowe said there's different to go into the business for the first time. So that is where I am focusing on.
All right. So, Mr. Msowe, she is be sustainable for them. She has mentioned one thing where they don't have to like rely on one value chain, or rather just be focusing on one thing. How can they make it sustainable for them? Maybe just adding on what she said.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so like she mentioned, like there's a whole lot of things that you need to consider.
Okay.
So basically, if you're focusing on one thing, it's not, you not find agric as a business. So basically, it's common business. It's the same way that you should take your investment in agriculture. Yeah. So one of the things that outside is the changing consumer preferences.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that you need to consider. Like if I'm into agriculture, like what is trending, like then that is going to define how you engage in your agribusiness.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some of the aspects that you need to consider, in a sense, to say for your business to be sustainable, you need to be able to meet what is demanded.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah, exactly. So there is the concept of demand and supply.
So you don't just have to wake up and say, you have to look into those areas.
Yes.
So where will I be taking my amatawa?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's a thing where you, as you start, like if you're a farmer, you need to think about, where am I going to sell my produce?
Okay.
Yeah, in as much as you would have all the resources for your production, but you need to think about how you're going to sell your produce. Okay. Yeah, and ultimately, right, being able to continue, that's the sustainability in a way. So you need to think about the effects that the methods that you're using have on the environment. Otherwise, if you're using poor practices in your production process, meaning it's a trade-off that you are making. Like she mentioned, it's about, am I able to do the same thing that I'm doing today? Am I able to do it tomorrow?
Yes.
Able to do it in your resources in the right way. we talk about they're using. If they are depleting the resources, if they are not using the irrigation systems in a manner that is sustainable, then it's a chain, like we mentioned, it's a value chain. So if the farmer is distorted, like the production process is distorted, there will be nothing to transport, and there will be nothing to process, and there will be nothing to sell at the end of the day. So basically, we're looking at the sustainability. If we're saying agriculture as a sustainable business,
yes.
Meaning we need to consider all the aspects in terms of how am I reaching the people, am I meeting their preferences, what substitutes do they have to what I'm producing, what I'm selling. Yeah, am I also the best of the way they are supposed to be used?
All right.
Yeah.
So
can I just
yes,
add
you can.
on Mr. Msowe touched something on growing for a market, with the market in mind. So there's a lot of dumping that happens in the market, especially where tomatoes are concerned.
Yes.
So you hear someone say, there's big market for tomatoes, and I just wake up and say, okay, I'm also going to grow tomatoes. So at the time when I harvest, I'm going to discover there's a lot more other people
that
selling
are
tomatoes.
doing the same. Yes.
So in the end, we end up dumping. We've seen pictures, we've seen videos of people dumping their commodities at Soweto Market and different other places. So we need, if we say people eat every day, that doesn't make it reasonable for me to go and produce.
Yes.
Well, we use tomatoes every day. That is why we keep seeing prices going down, and it also affects the sustainability of the business, because if I end up dumping my tomatoes or my commodities on the market, it means I'm not going to have to invest back into the business.
Yes.
So there, the sustainability isn't there.
Okay.
Yeah, and also
yes,
we know that agriculture, especially for fresh commodities, we are looking at the freshness.
Yeah, that is also considered.
Yes, the freshness of the commodities, the freshness of the vegetables that are coming to us. So if we overproduce, a lot of people producing at the same time, it means it also leads to the dumping process, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Msowe.
So yes.
This is starting to feel like, so there is just a lot that somebody needs to consider when venture into the business. Or it can be done even by somebody who doesn't like have the school kind of knowledge. They can just maybe find out from people. Is it something that requires some?
Answer would be yes and no.
Okay.
In to a large extent. So basically, you need the right skills.
Yes.
For you to be able to yield the desired results. So in as much as your education or your form of learning may not be as formal, but you still need some form of understanding of what you're going to do.
Yes.
So it's like we already stated from what we've already discussed, is that there's a vast of things that you would do in the agriculture sector.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of points that you can enter. Like which point do you want to enter? Like, do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be a transporter? Do you want to be a marketer? Yes. So it's the whole process. Do you want to be an agro processor? So basically you need to understand at which point of the value chain are you going to enter or to come in, or what services are you bringing to the table. So basically, in as much as we would say anyone can come through, like anyone can join the agribusiness in its sense, but it also requires or demands the right skills. So if I'm going to produce soybeans, if I'm going to produce groundnuts, I need the skills.
Sure.
Yeah, if I'm going to be an agro dealer,
education that is needed, but education is a must.
Yes.
When we look at education as just knowledge.
An understanding of what you're going to do. Yes.
Sure, sure.
Exactly.
All right, so I've heard one word that is, I can't say I know it, but by virtue of it being an English word, I'm just like thinking, say, okay, it might mean this. And that word is the value chain. Okay. Or a statement. The value chain. Yeah, so I'm okay, there is the word chain, then there is value. So me sitting here value chain could mean this.
It's a chain.
Then that has value.
Yeah,
So
right.
perhaps you might try to just explain a little bit
Okay.
what the value chain
Okay.
being talked about is.
So a value chain is a series of activities. For example, if I say soybeans value chain, we are literally speaking about everything that's involved, every process that's involved in the production of soybeans. So
Okay.
that value chain has different actors. They are part of the value chain. For example, the inputs people, the ones that sell, the input suppliers, they are part of the value chain. The people involved in the people that are off-taking, the aggregators, part of the value chain. Transporters, part of the value chain. Processors, part of the value chain. Then the consumers, part of the value chain.
Okay, so it's
that's the
basically
value chain
like
from
beginning,
like
the
from farm to
seeds, the
table to
farmers.
fork,
Okay,
yes.
okay, now I understand it. I hope you also now understand what a value chain is. And of course, Mr. Mso is
As Lono Studios, we cover events such as weddings, kitchen parties, chilanga mulilo, birthday parties, as well as corporate events. If you are looking for quality pictures,
all right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let us go through some of the comments that have just come through, and one is coming from Bravius Mutale. Mutale was saying, "I see you, the boss lady." I believe that is dedicated to you, Miss Walia. Then we have Joshua Dwayne who is saying, "Is it wrong to assume that agriculture is the way forward as a means of improving the economy or benefit?" So, is it wrong to assume that agriculture is the way forward as the means of improving the country's economy? Since the question includes the economy part, I will send it to my right.
Yeah.
So would we assume that agriculture is the way forward to improving the country's economy?
Yeah, I'm glad that he mentioned to say there is actually another aspect to it.
Yes.
He mentioned technology.
Yes.
Yeah, science and technology. So basically, from that itself, it shows to say the economy is bigger than agriculture itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but agriculture, you see that agriculture contributes about 8% of the total GDP.
Yes.
So meaning that's a substantive amount to the total domestic product of Zambia.
Yes.
So in essence, it cannot be neglected. In as much as there are other components to it, as much as there is mining, there is other industries that are contributing to the total GDP.
Yes.
But we can ultimately say that agriculture is also a major player or a major contributor to the entire GDP of the country. And
Yes.
if we look at the number of small-scale farmers, there are about 40% of the total population depends on agriculture as a way of livelihood.
Sure.
So if 40% of the economy, if 40% of the smallholder farmers are enhanced or they are enabled to commercialize, then their contribution is going to be substantive.
Sure.
So in as much as we would say it's not the only player, we can ultimately say agriculture can be used as a way to drive the economy to grow.
Sure. Maybe your addition to the same question.
Okay.
Agriculture being the way forward in improving the country's economy.
Yeah, it is one of the ways, as Mr. Msowe has stated. We are not only producing for ourselves if we're going to go into agribusiness.
Yes.
We're not producing for our families, but we're producing so that provinces are able to feed themselves. Nations are able to feed themselves as well as export. You saw what happened when COVID-19 came in.
Yes.
There were shortages of soybeans because other nations were not able to grow and export to the people that offtake from them. So in as much as we don't want to focus so much on agriculture and making it the
major player.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. But we are also saying it's very easy for somebody to venture into agriculture. We mentioned earlier to say agribusiness is family business.
Yes.
So that means that somebody can start from zero and still do something because they already have family land. They are leveraging on that.
Sure.
So it's
even
easy
in the
for a
backyard, there is
Yeah.
somewhere you can start from.
It's easy for a youth somewhere, I don't know where, in wherever in the village where I come from, it's easy for me to start up a business because I already have family land. Maybe our land is near a river and we have all these other pros. I already have family land. Maybe our land is near a river, meeting a lot of farmers. So it's a good place to start.
Sure.
Though we wouldn't run away from the fact that we need a balanced economy.
Yes.
All aspects of the economy should be balanced.
Sure. I like what you've just mentioned. Compared to many other businesses, agriculture, I think, it could be one of the easiest when it comes to starting, because you've mentioned one thing, most especially for people living in rural areas.
Yes.
Those have land already. That is one place to start from. Others are living near rivers. That is one place to start from. And of course, even those that are in towns, they have backyards where they can grow vegetables.
Grow your strawberries there.
Yes,
and be selling.
exactly.
You don't need much land.
Which we don't actually see a lot in towns. We have people who have land. Panganda pa kanda kanono konsuku kwa shala. They would rather put tiles para muneka wino.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't think of putting up a garden. Chama babika landscaping wino.
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe moving on, Mr. Musowe. To somebody out there who is sitting and thinking, okay, so they have talked about agriculture as a business and I would want to start this business. What are some of the opportunities that are out there for somebody who wants to venture into this business?
Okay, yeah, so thanks. So agriculture is, like you've already established this far. I hope by the time that we conclude, the viewers would have understood to say it's a vast thing. Like,
yes,
there's a lot that you can do. So you can always find some niches where you can come through. Since we mentioned there's aspects of production,
yes,
right? There's, as a farmer, you might not really engage in the actual production, but you can make some margins out of what is being produced.
Okay.
Right? You can be an off-taker, like she mentioned. You just make some margins. You buy from the farmers and make a small margin out of that. You're already part of the value chain.
Okay.
Yeah, you can be an input supplier. You know, to say most of our farmers use recycled seeds. Yeah, they struggle to find certified seeds. So if that's already an opportunity for someone who wants to enter the agribusiness, right? So there is also aspects of agriculture consultants. She mentioned extension officers.
Yes.
Yeah, but we know to say the ratio of the extension officers to the number of farmers is quite big. So meaning